All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, a very good morning to you from sunny California. I hope it's pleasant wherever you are today. My name is Simon Thompson, and I'm the Cloud Networking Technical Evangelist here at Cisco Meraki. And thank you very much for joining us for this very special webinar, where we will be going through an introduction to Meraki, but also having a good look at one of our customer deployments, that's Norwalk Public Schools. So on the agenda for the next hour, we will kick off with an introduction to cloud networking. Why are we taking this quite different approach to managing a data network? If you haven't seen Meraki before, I think you're going to find it very, very exciting and energizing hour, where we're going to give you a good look at the experience of working as a network administrator on the Meraki environment. But of course, very importantly today, we will be taking a good look at this case study with Norwalk Public Schools to get a really good understanding from a customer's perspective what it's been like transitioning to Meraki and living with it on a day-to-day basis. I will take you through a live demo during the session so that we can have a look at the network and some of the key features which are particularly useful to Norwalk. And we will wrap things up towards the end with a look at the product line and a question and answer session. Now, I am joined today by my trusty colleague Tanya, who is ready and willing to answer your questions during the next hour. And over on the right-hand side of your screen, you will find a tool that you can use to ask a question at any time during the next hour during the presentation. So there's no need to wait for that Q&A section. If you have a question, please just tap away using that tool. Let's keep Tanya nice and busy, and we'll share some of the interesting questions with you all towards the end of the hour. Now, I'm very happy to announce that for IT professionals who are joining us today, you'll qualify for a free Cisco Meraki 802.11n access point. And this comes together with a 3-year cloud management license. It's a fantastic opportunity for you to get your hands on some of our hardware, but even more importantly than that, and the real reason why we do this, is we want you to have the opportunity in your own time and your own environment to try out the Meraki experience for yourselves. So it's really nice seeing it during a presentation, but there's really no substitute for having your own piece of equipment that you can integrate and set up the way that is appropriate for your own network. So we're very excited to be able to make this offer. There are some eligibility details which you can see noted at the bottom of the screen there, particularly around E-rate. So please do take a note of that and have a look at that website, which will just confirm the eligibility details. But assuming that you are eligible, then please do give us a call to confirm your shipping information, because we do want to make sure we get that access point sent to the correct address. You'll find contact details for how to reach out to us in the reminder email that you received for joining today's webinar. Alternatively, if you have a look at our website, you'll find the contact details there. All right, let's get things started with a quick look at Cisco Meraki and who we are and how we got to where we are today. So what we offer to the marketplace is a complete cloud-managed networking solution, and this really is everything that you need to build your local area network. So this comprises wireless switches to connect everything together, security appliances to protect your network environment, and of course mobile device management software for managing the endpoints, particularly useful in the education environment. So we have very tight integration between our hardware and software and the cloud services that we operate. And what we really mean by that is that we're able to iterate very quickly and add new features and functionality a little bit faster than the industry average because of very tight integration. We've developed all the hardware and software together to work in unison, and that does give us a certain degree of advantage. Meraki was born out of a research project that our founders undertook whilst they were students at MIT in the early 2000s, and their project was called RoofNet. Quite an exciting project related to mesh networking, and the way things started was that we had a selection of wireless devices which were connected together across the rooftops in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area, and this was used to obviously connect those different buildings together. But what was really interesting about the project was the ability to centralize the management of all of those dispersed mesh APs. So this concept of centralized management was relatively new to the Wi-Fi world at that time, and it really developed, in our case, into a software-based solution rather than a wireless controller, which is what most of the industry have been using for the last 15 years or so. So our solution, we actually started as a business in 2006, and we've been there for 100% cloud managed since the very beginning. So we've not adapted our technology late in the day to catch up with the what really has become perhaps the most overhyped buzz term in the history of IT. We hear the word cloud so many times in the IT world nowadays, but this is a true original cloud implementation, which simply means that the control for all this network infrastructure is based on servers which sit in managed data centers that we operate on behalf of our customer base. We now have tens of millions of endpoint devices connected to Meraki networks around the world. When we go into the demo, you'll see for yourself the scale of our success. It really is a very exciting time to be working with this technology because it's really taken off. We've definitely hit on something special here. Now, we were acquired by Cisco towards the end of 2012, but even before that acquisition, we were already being recognized by the industry for our innovation. So we were showing right over on the far right-hand side of the Gartner Magic Quadrant for innovation, for example. And we also won a great award called InfoWorld Technology of the Year. And this has previously been awarded to products like the iPhone and the iPad, so we're in pretty good company there, I think. You can see some of the school districts that we've been associated with at the bottom of the screen there, and in fact we have a whole bunch of these, very many on our website, which you can go and read up about if you'd like to learn more about previous experiences. Obviously we're focusing today on Norwalk, so we get to talk to a real customer about their own environment. This is just some of the others that we've worked with, and really education is a big sector for Meraki, and that's really because it's a perfect solution for multi-site deployments. It makes managing a multi-site network very much easier, and of course school districts here in North America are very large, sometimes tens of thousands of students, and so it really does help to have an easy central management for your network infrastructure. Now, if you're interested in reading more about customer experiences beyond what you're going to learn today, do hop along to our website at meraki.cisco.com/customers. Let's have a quick look at the architecture which makes all of this operate together. So you, as a network admin, simply fire up your web browser on your computer or your device of choice. You can even do this on a smartphone or tablet, and you log on to our cloud servers. And what happens then is that you are able to start configuring and monitoring the network infrastructure that you've purchased from us. So when you buy a product from Meraki, you're given a serial number or a bunch of serial numbers, and as soon as you have those, you can actually start configuring against them in the cloud. So the master configuration sits there on the cloud servers, but it is then pushed down a management data connection to the Meraki network itself. So the actual hardware, when it's first powered on, it's going to phone home to the cloud, and it's going to pull down the configuration for its serial number. It's a very, very efficient model that we have here. And this management data connection is a persistent one, which maintains a heartbeat between the hardware and the cloud. And this enables you to make configuration changes and to monitor what's going on a network quickly and easily without really any impact at all. Now, the beauty of the configuration being pushed down to the Meraki hardware is that if you are unlucky enough to be disconnected from the cloud for any reason, you're still going to be able to operate your Meraki network. So you simply rely on the cloud to configure and to monitor your network, to make changes, but you don't need that to operate the network. So that's a really important point to note. But this model, which is really like an abstraction layer between you as a network admin and the hardware itself, does give us a great deal of flexibility. It enables us to start configuring devices based on tags, for example. So we can tag a device as belonging to a particular building or particular campus, and we can go make config changes that apply to all that equipment simultaneously, which is very, very powerful. So it's a very scalable solution. We do have customers, several customers actually, running thousands of Meraki devices in their networks, and they can achieve this scale with no loss of performance whatsoever because of the very efficient architecture that we have here. The very important point that I do always like to stress is that your user traffic does not pass through our cloud servers. The cloud is simply used as the control side of things. So it's simply used to send configuration changes to the hardware and to receive monitoring traffic from the equipment. Now, monitoring traffic is the result of traffic analysis that we do as your data passes through the Meraki hardware. So a real-world example of that is we would be able to see that a volume of Facebook traffic, for example, has been used or has traversed the Meraki network, but we don't actually get down to see exactly which Facebook page or Facebook user or that kind of thing. Well, what we're interested in here is what's called metadata. That's information about the traffic that's passing across our network. And that helps network administrators to plan their network deployments to ensure that they have appropriate levels of hardware and throughput to support the environment that it's going into. So this is a very reliable solution. We do have multiple data centers here in North America and right across the world. And so config masters never sit in one place. They're replicated amongst multiple cloud services, cloud data centers, I should say. And you as a network administrator don't have to worry about any of that. It's a little bit like connecting to a Google service or a Dropbox service. You don't really concern yourself with which server or data center you're connected to. You just want to know your data is safe and secure. And that is exactly the same approach that we take with Meraki. So we do have some very important compliances in place for our data centers and for our network design generally. We are fully HIPAA compliant for the healthcare sector, and we're also PCI compliant to level 1, which is the most stringent level of PCI compliance. Now, there's a really good website noted at the bottom of the screen there, and I do recommend you take a look at this if you're new to Meraki, because it's going to help you build confidence in this architecture if it's one that's new to you. So you can find plenty of details at meraki.cisco.com/trust. So why might you choose Cisco Meraki for the K-12 environment? It really is all around the day-to-day experience of working with a Meraki network, and you're going to see that obviously during the demonstration in this session. But just to give you a quick heads up, we have a very intuitive graphical user interface for monitoring and configuring your network environment. So you don't have any cryptic command line interface to learn. This is particularly appealing to younger generations who are not baked and grown up with the iOS platform for Cisco, for example, or some of the other really nasty command line interfaces that have been created in the past. We've moved past that point now. So with an understanding of how networks operate, you're going to be really at home very quickly on Meraki and able to start being very effective, and also ensure that your network is operating at its best performance all the time. Because a simple, intuitive interface is going to give you the opportunity to go and look at it regularly and make little changes here and there based on the information that's provided for you with the industry-leading visibility and control, and that ensures that that network experience is absolutely premium. And we do have also some really nice remote tools for monitoring multiple locations and even making quite sophisticated monitoring capabilities here. So things like packet capture. Those of you who are network administrators, you'll know that normally you need to be actually present with a switch to do a packet capture on that to see the information there. And this requires you normally to set up a port mirror or plug in a hub. With Meraki, you can actually do a packet capture from anywhere in the world where you have an internet connection and a browser. So you can be sat at home on your sofa troubleshooting a network down to the bits and bytes level, which could be on the other side of town, the other side of the state, or even the other side of the world. Very powerful tools built in to help you manage a network across multiple locations without having to have IT staff at every single one of those. Okay, so at this point I'm going to introduce our hosts who are joining us from Norwalk Public Schools today, who've got a very exciting story to tell us about their own Meraki deployment. So Ralph and Dave, if you'd like to say a quick hello and introduction, perhaps introduce your roles within your environment, and then we'll get rolling from there.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks so much. This is Ralph Valenzisi. I'm the, sorry, we're turning off the second speaker we had. This is Ralph Valenzisi. I'm the Chief of Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships for the school system. So my role spans across educational technology as well as building new schools and programs here, as well as making sure that we actually have partnerships with local communities and public-private partnerships as we build different types of programs for students throughout the district.
I'm David Hopp. I'm the Director of Technology. I've worked here at the Norwalk Public Schools for 17 years in the technology department, and just recently became actually the director. So you know, I've been through the ups and downs and all the different things we've moved from dial-up into you know, broadband internet. So you know, having wireless, this was a big step for us. So we're very excited.
It's great. It's certainly been a very exciting period in the IT world, and the growth of Wi-Fi in the last 10 years has really been phenomenal. So perhaps you could just give us a quick introduction to Norwalk Public Schools, give us a sense of the scale and how many locations you have for your school district.
Sure. So Norwalk is a town of close to 90,000 people that live here in Norwalk. We're in Fairfield County, right on the coast. We have a very diverse population, and we have a little over, well, actually, probably closer now to 12,000 students. So we have over 11,000 students. Our infrastructure, in the sense of facilities, looks like that we have 12 elementary schools, we have 4 middle schools, we have 2 large high schools and 1 alternative high school, and we have our central office area. We currently, as a technology department, have 8 people that manage all of our devices, 3 that are truly dedicated to more of all the networking that goes on here in the district. From a device standpoint, we have probably close to at least 10,000 nodes on our network at the moment. We have a gig backbone connecting all of our buildings, a fiber backbone, and a gig going out to our infrastructure that is given to us by the state of Connecticut. Recently, we've deployed a number of different devices on the Wi-Fi network. Currently, one of the biggest devices that we've been deploying are Chromebooks. In the last 12 months, we have deployed 5,000 of them into our network.
Wow. That's certainly an impressive deployment. That's a lot of hardware to look after, and a lot of students to cover as well, with just 3 of you working on the network. So that's, I think, a pretty good example of a lean IT operation, just in thinking about that ratio of staff to students. And Chromebooks, of course, I have one of those myself. It's basically a device that lives online, so obviously going to be generating a fair amount of network traffic each time. Is this what the weather looks like in Norwalk today, by any chance? I'm just curious.
Yep. This is actually one of the first days that it is looking like that right now. There's just a lot more white stuff around, that's all.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it looks like it's been pretty cold over in that part of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm really interested to understand a little bit more about the online learning initiatives that you've been developing, and I guess this is what's really interesting here, of course, is the impact that all these have on the network infrastructure. So I wonder if you could just walk us through what those initiatives look like for you.
Sure. So, you know, about 1.5 years ago, I came back to Norwalk. I had left for a number of years. Done some other type of consulting work, but came back as in this new position. And Dave and I started assessing what we have currently in place, and we knew that, you know, some of the vision that we have here in town at the moment is to make sure that we're preparing students with 21st century learning skills. This means that we want to make sure that in conjunction with just regular curriculum that is normally taught and our Common Core curriculum, we want to make sure that items such as creativity, critical thinking, communication skills, and collaboration skills are included in all of our different areas of teaching. We've done a lot of work with our teachers, and we actually, you know, we have an IT department, but from the educational technology standpoint, I do have teachers that basically volunteer to become tech coaches in each one of their buildings, and they actually work with us to make sure that all of these technology initiatives are actually done, and there's professional development for teachers and so forth as we move forward. As we started putting these pieces into place, one of the things that we noticed is that you know, our environment, first of all, without having any Wi-Fi, we didn't really have the capacity to really get kids to where they need to be so that they can actually learn. They need that anytime, anywhere learning environment. So we wanted to make sure that that was put into place for them. We also knew that the couple of areas that we did have some Wi-Fi, in the school system, it was sporadic and it just wasn't very reliable. So we wanted to make sure that we had a managed system that would actually make more sense as we move forward, that with such a lean department, we could actually make sure that it was something that the district knew was reliable to be able to be used. We upgraded our infrastructure. I know Dave will talk more about the actual upgrading of the infrastructure itself, but once we did this, some of the key initiatives that we wanted to put into place in the district were making sure that, one of the compliance issues we had to deal with was making sure that we could actually deliver online assessments. Last year, we were one of the pilots for the state of Connecticut, and about 8,000 students had to take online assessments. They're starting right now, and I'm knocking on wood that everything will go well this year. But we actually had no hiccups whatsoever with this, with our online assessment platform last year using these Chromebooks. And we can talk a little bit about the timeline in a minute, but we had actually only started this project really by the end of November. We started testing about this time towards the end of February, beginning of March of last year. So within that time frame, we were able to deploy and outfit and wire all 19 schools with Meraki access points, so that we basically had a complete coverage throughout the district, and implemented our online testing without a glitch last year at all.
Very nice.
Yeah, no, it was actually really impressive between the third parties that worked with us as well as our internal staff. We rely a lot now on Google Apps for education for the students, and those Chromebooks allowed us to be able to deploy this, where we've been able to now have students use Chromebooks. We're developing a new BYOD policy, and students are bringing in their own devices, which has once again the solution that we have in place now. Our Meraki solution has allowed us to be able to have that type of an environment for students to bring in whatever they have at home. So we're not at a one-to-one initiative, but we're probably pretty close to it at times in certain buildings because of what students are bringing in from home as well as what we're able to provide. Teachers have started to rely on the network a lot more, to the point now where it's anytime it was interesting. At first, you wouldn't hear a lot about the issues that we were having potentially with networking from some older infrastructure that we had in place. Once they started relying on it, now even like the most minor hiccup for a few minutes, we'll end up getting a call in right away. So, but we do know that because it's been so successful and so stable, that even for a moment of losing that, they, we definitely hear about it, which is great. So, I mean, we're knowing that it's actually become a good solution and a solid solution for teachers and students to use. And one of the things that's like listed at the end of this slide is this idea of future-proofing. We are expanding as a district. We're in the middle of a facilities utilization plan that we know that we're going to be adding buildings. We're also expanding, as I mentioned, I'm in charge of partnerships, so we're working with community outreach partners to offer, let's say, after-school programs at a local church. The Meraki solution is allowing us to be able to make sure that if we put a wireless access point into one of those churches, that's actually not part of our infrastructure, but it does allow us to be able to manage and give students the security that they need, and they can bring in their devices that they're using at school at that local church for an after-school program, but yet still know that they're safe and secure and that they have access to their Google Apps for Education and all the other apps that we can give them access to as a school system. So it's really extended our environment into the complete community, and those are things that we would have never have had the possibility to do in the past, and those third-party providers would not have the staff to be able to help us in doing that. So it's really become an overall a wonderful solution for us to be able to really take down the walls here for the students and give them 24/7 access to what they need at any time with any device.
Fantastic story, and I mean this idea of taking down the walls. I love that term. I'm assuming that you're taking effectively the network configuration that you use yourselves already and just extending that out to other environments, really like for like, and just because then all you need is for the network all you actually need to make this happen is a wired network connection to plug the APs into and power to make the APs work, and you can take care of everything else from home base effectively.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly how we do it.
Very exciting. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual deployment. This looks like it's got some serious numbers in here, so would you like to take us through this one?
Sure. So we discussed, we met with Meraki and a third party for the implementation, and we, after reviewing all the other vendors, it seemed like the best way to go for us. So as Ralph had mentioned earlier, we had started near the end of November of 2013. The actual first access point didn't go up until December. We were able to get all of the buildings done by the end, all but one of the buildings, I should say, by the end of March. And then the final building was done during April. It's 1 AP per classroom. It's over 800 access points. I think it's up to 857 currently. We also put in the switches to use to power the access points and to connect into our existing Cisco infrastructure.
So this is, I mean, I think what's really impressive about the story you're telling us here is the speed at which you achieve this build. And I've heard stories like this before. I guess the ability to pre-stage your equipment before it's even deployed out to the locations is really does help to do these rapid deployments. Is that how it worked for you? Did you pre-stage things in that way? Yes,
everything was pre-cataloged, pre-configured and boxed, ready to go, put into the buildings it was to be installed in. And as soon as the wiring crews, because we put new wiring and everything in for every access point, was done, we hung the access point, it came on, and it was working. And we could use it. The configuration on the back end, with help from, again, with Cisco Meraki, we were able to get a basic SSID structure before we went to what we're using now. It's pretty close, actually. And as soon as they plugged in, came on, talked, they updated, and you could connect and use the wireless.
It's fantastic. And so for those of you who are joining us today and you may be completely new to the Meraki experience, pre-staging in this way and these very fast rollouts is something we really do excel at, because as we've heard described here, you can literally start to configure your Meraki environment without ever physically touching a piece of hardware. So the equipment could be just sat in its box, headed directly from our warehouse to wherever it's going to be deployed on your location. You can have it pre-staged, configured, and ready to go, so that as soon as it's plugged in, it's going to suck down the config for its serial number and begin operating with that straight away. And that does just make it more practical for doing these quick deployments if you are operating against a target time to get these things in place. Very nice. So with such a high deployment of, or such a high density of wireless, I'm very interested to hear some of the features that you deployed on that wireless to make it operate nice and efficiently with such a high density, 1 AP per classroom. That's certainly going to require some configuration in terms of things like traffic shaping and channel management and so on. If you'd like to just maybe walk us through some of those highlights.
Sure. With traffic shaping, we're trying to use that to keep students from wasting bandwidth on things like, Pandora, other streaming services, YouTube. Actually, we don't really block YouTube because they need it, but so we can stick to them having the most bandwidth for the actual sites they need. We do, on certain SSIDs, block the actual devices. So we block cell phones, so Android cell phones and iPhones, and certain other devices, so that only the iPads or actual Windows laptops can use up that bandwidth. It's not being sucked up by personal devices. If they want to use those things, they can use the guest network. As you see here, anyone's allowed to connect. Our BYOD is just bring in your device from home. You have to put in your name and your password, and you can connect to the wireless. This avoids people doing things. They can use their own device and can get to the things they cannot get to, maybe on the guest network. But they also have their name and password in there, so we know who it is. And then our district wireless is is certificate-based through Active Directory. So we push out their certificate and preload the information to, say, a Windows laptop. It boots up, it automatically connects into the wireless infrastructure.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I certainly don't envy those of you who do work in IT in the education sector with all these kids bringing totally different devices every day and trying to use up your network resources. It's quite a, well, I guess you could look at it as an exciting challenge, but it's certainly a challenge to keep a network running smoothly with all that going on.
That's definitely one way to look at it. I mean, it is kind of interesting. The idea of being able to, actually even give some of these reports to principals has been eye-opening for them as well, as they're seeing, how many cell phones and what is actually, what kind of traffic they're seeing in their buildings, allows them to actually help manage their buildings and, talk to teachers a little bit too about, what maybe are the purposes, because a lot of times we do want kids actually using cell phones to access certain data because it is a very viable device. But making sure that it's actually educationally appropriate is something that we've been able to start explaining to principals, and it's helped them as well.
Right. And of course, this is an issue which, to more or less a degree, really impacts everybody nowadays, because a lot of the applications running on these devices are using network resources in some way, even if it's just for downloading software updates. But increasingly, we've got a lot of media-rich applications, and it does often surprise people when they see how network resources are being used for the first time, which is so easy to see with the Meraki interface. It is always those kind of applications. You just don't imagine that there's so much of it going on, but it's just because those apps themselves consume that much more bandwidth to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very interesting. So from a troubleshooting and support perspective, what kind of stories have you got to share there? It looks like you have, again, made use of quite a few of the features we have in place.
Right. So as it says here, the email alerts are very nice. So that way, you can set a time limit on them. But at least with, even if we haven't set it at the high end, I think, which is an hour, we get to, myself and the two other gentlemen and some of the other guys too, get emails saying, okay, this device went offline. So now we can call the school, see if they're having a power issue. If not, we can see what's going on. For the most part, it's usually a issue that brings the device offline. Again, we can go through the dashboard, quickly see if something's red, something's wrong. We can look and drill down and find it very quickly. We have used the packet capture to try to lock down a multicast problem we were having in one of our buildings, and with the help of the support from Cisco Meraki, we were able to find some issues. And again, with the role-based administration in the dashboard, a lot of my guys, they can go in and look, so if they're in a building and they're like, something's not right, I can't connect, they can look and see what's going on, but because I don't want too many hands in there, they can't change anything. They have to call one of us to go in and say, okay, yes, that's the problem, let me fix that for you. And again, they could do the same thing with the mobile app. Instead of logging in and having their desktop or going to a desktop or having a laptop, they can use the mobile app, see what's broken, give me a call, we can fix it. And like I said, support is very good. They rarely don't pick up where it just rings for a while. I've always gotten a person, and they've been very helpful.
That's great.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, and these are some really nice examples that you've pulled out here. Role-based administration, I think, is really nicely implemented. We have the ability to set up roles based on tags, so you could create a tag for, say, one of your buildings, and you can actually have certain admins tied to that tag. And then give them admin access, read-only access, whatever you want to do. So that's really handy for distributing the workload. The mobile app as well, those of you who've not seen this already, we have a mobile app available for iOS and Android, which is really nice because once you have your network configured, which you would typically do in your web browser for convenience, you're then able to do some of the basic monitoring capability just from that smartphone device that's in your pocket. So you just take it out and you can see what kind of apps are running, what the health status of your different infrastructure components look like. So we find that this is a very popular approach to kind of mix together the configuration on the dashboard we're going to look at in a second with the convenience of mobile devices. As far as our support's concerned, just so that you're aware, everybody listening today, we do have 24/7 support for the Meraki solution. We've got a very large professional group of support engineers here, and we really do try to make sure that we have an excellent support experience, both in terms of obviously answering the phone, but also the level of technical experience in that team is really high. So we're always able to get to
interject one more thing. I've actually, because I'm so busy, they've actually called me back a few times, saying, "Is everything okay? Is everything okay?" It's very good support.
Wow, thank you. That's really good to hear. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So network results and future plans. So maybe just give us an idea of what the experience, or summary, if you like, of how you felt working with Meraki is like, and what you intend to do with it going forwards.
Well, I know that from the educational technology standpoint, we talked about a couple of items already. Expanding beyond our regular schools is one of the things that we're actually looking at doing on a more regular basis for our students. We also are going to be looking at actually the mobile device management in time. It's one of the areas where we really haven't been able to do too much with beyond really looking at just where the devices are and what they're doing. But I know that we want to expand on that a little bit. We are looking at a new bring your own device policy because we can now. So we have the capacity to be able to do that, and it'll actually be implemented. It will be implemented before July 1st. So we've got a policy in place right now, a draft that should get approved by the board within the next few months. And as the last bullet point mentions, about providing wireless for students at off-campus sites is really important to us over the next year or so.
That sounds like something you've already started doing as well, so you've already had the chance to experiment with that, with that approach. Fantastic, yeah. And so the MDM and BYOD thing is always good fun. I do encounter a few people who mix those terms up. I think there is a real key difference here, because obviously kids bringing their own devices into the school district, they're not going to be too happy necessarily to have modifications made to those devices based on their location. So the MDM side of things is really more targeted at devices that a school district has purchased itself, that it's then issuing out to staff and students, and it really helps you to lock those devices down so that they operate exactly how you expect.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very nice. So I think a pretty successful partnership there. I think the really nice description. I do appreciate the walkthrough there. Thank you very much. What we'll do now, if it's okay with you, is we'll jump into the network and have a quick look around at some of the interesting configuration elements of it, just to give our attendees an opportunity to see what the dashboard interface looks like.
Sure.
So let me jump across to my web browser, and I need to sign back in again. This is exactly the experience you would expect to have yourselves. So you simply use web browser of choice and just connect to this secure web page. Now, we do support two-factor authentication as well, so you can really lock this down. It's obviously a very important login here, so we want to make sure that you get that properly protected. So if I jump in here, this should take us to the appropriate place. And we're starting off with the overview of the network. So this is the experience you're going to get as you log into the Meraki dashboard. You can immediately see that we have integration here with Google Maps. So what you normally would do here is you would actually give a location for each of your Meraki devices, and you can do that as they're deployed, and then they will simply plot themselves onto a map like this. That becomes very handy because now you can just jump around. For example, we can see that we've got a device with some sort of a problem here, and obviously we could start to drill down, just click through to get to the device we want to get to. I'm just going to expand this view on the right-hand side of the screen here, and so we can have a look and see a little bit more of the summary information. And one of the things I always like to point out on here is what I call the progress history, the health history, if you like, of the device, the network health. So what I love about this is it's very handy for looking at a glance and seeing historically what's been going on with your network devices. So in this case, we are looking at a very large network. We've seen 14,391 clients in the past week, 5 terabytes of data, and this is over 25 different networks, which would be different environments combining switches, wireless, and so on. And we can see very easily where we've had any kind of a problem. So we can see there's a little vertical red line there. So if we were to go into this network, we could investigate that a little further. It may be that a device was rebooted, perhaps a cable was disconnected temporarily. Could be a whole bunch of reasons for this, but the nice advantage is that you can see anything which happens in common across multiple devices. So this is handy if you're trying to troubleshoot based on reported trouble tickets. And by the way, gents, please don't hesitate to interrupt me or jump in at any time if there's anything you'd like to particularly highlight in relation to the deployments here.
Right. So if you see a couple of the gray networks at the bottom, that's just stuff we've been testing, so don't worry about that. And we've been having some power issues over at that one building up top there, so I'm assuming that's what that is. I better send someone.
So it's proving useful already. Hopefully you can stick with us for the rest of the hour at least. That would be good. Is there a particular network you'd like us to dive into, maybe one that's particularly interesting from a configuration perspective?
Well, the good thing about it is every one of them is pretty much configured exactly the same.
Right.
So we can separate them into chunks so they're easier to manage, but the management's is pretty close. So
okay.
Any one of them that end in ES or an elementary school, they're fairly smaller, so it's kind of easier to look at if you want to pick a DES there. That's one of our elementary schools.
Okay, so let's jump into that one. And so all we do is tap on the network name, and then we get into a view which is specific to this network. And we use the term network fairly loosely, but just to give you an indication, it's really a logical grouping of devices, network infrastructure, and you can define these in various different ways. So in this case, the network at BES has, in amongst it, it has our switches and it has our wireless equipment as well. If you had also our security appliances, then you would also see those connected in here. I'm guessing, guys, that you have some other way of interconnecting your sites using a different approach, perhaps for VPN or MPLS, something like that.
I'm sorry, I missed what you were saying there.
How are the individual schools actually connected together?
Right. So all of our schools are interconnected by redundant fiber rings. So we have gig connections between every building back to here, our central office site. So we can very good speed in between the buildings.
Right. So it's like a private circuit, effectively, that you've been provided for connecting via Ethernet.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a very high-speed way of doing things, and that was one of the questions that one of our listeners has already posed, which was how fast is the connection. I'm guessing they're also talking about the speed of the experience that the kids are having and the staff actually using the network. Have you got any comments to make on that one?
Yeah, it's usually very good. Our current, when I watch the bandwidth monitors, our standard daily top throughput out into the internet is roughly 250 megabits a second. And even at that speed, that's with all 18 buildings online, and everything seems to run fairly smooth.
Wow.
We do get some spikes here and there, but that's because building infrastructure and different buildings at different size use different amounts of bandwidth. So. Yeah,
and one of the things over the next couple of years that we're going to really be looking at doing is part of our our 3-year technology plan here is to actually upgrade to 10 gig switching at each building. I mean, I know that's outside of obviously just the wireless piece, but we know that we're going to be expecting to need more bandwidth as time goes on. So.
Yeah, it's like the Moore's law thing. It's just an inevitability, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So here is the list of clients for this particular location. So in the past day, on this network, we've transferred just over 40 gigs of traffic. We can see the traffic profile there, and it's very easy to change pretty much everything about the view that we're looking at here. So if we wanted to, we could just look at clients that were connected to the APs. You can actually see down here in the list, we've got clients connected to switches. That's the Ethernet jack icon there, and then online wireless client. So we can narrow it down to specific ones. Let's just look at the Wi-Fi clients. So we've seen 319 of those over the course of the past day. And down here we can see which ones are online and offline and so on. Now this is a very flexible interface, so you can really set this up the way you like. You can sort by any one of these columns. You can move them around to your heart's content so that you can really lay this out just how you like. If you've got a large enough screen, you can also add a whole bunch of information all on the screen at the same time. And because these lists of clients can grow quite large, we do have really nice search tools built in across the interface. So for example, if we wanted to, we could just do a search for iPads. So we can see we've had 53 iPads on the Wi-Fi network in the past day. And this works for operating systems as well. So I could type in Windows, and I can see there that I've had 11 Windows client devices. And we're doing quite sophisticated device fingerprinting to identify these devices, so we are confident that we're going to get that accurate almost every single time. Certainly a very useful tool to have there. Now, in terms of looking at the applications themselves, up here we have a breakdown of the types of services which the network is being used for. And this pie can get rather complex looking as it is today. So if you just tap this, you get this really nice drop down here with a list of all the applications consuming your bandwidth in this case sorted by group usage, so type of traffic. And this is at this point we often find many of our customers have never seen this information presented in such an easy way before, because they can now see at a glance just how much of different types of traffic. And just as I was mentioning earlier, it's often the case that we find that these high bandwidth applications start to appear towards the top of the list. So YouTube is very typical. A lot of Google services nowadays for pretty much everybody. So this is, I would say, quite a normal looking distribution. Hopefully nothing too shocking on the screen for you there, gentlemen.
No.
No, not at all.
I think it's something.
Actually, somebody went to MySpace. That's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What's going on there? A whole 61 kilobytes of traffic. So let's imagine that in your own environment you might be a little bit concerned about the volume of YouTube traffic that you're seeing, for example. So all I have to do is just tap on the word YouTube. It's going to take me in and show me who is contributing to that YouTube traffic. And I can see straight away, I'm pretty sure I'm right in guessing that these are all Chromebooks. Looking at that manufacturer there, so yes, Chrome OS. And we can see the actual client names of who's been contributing. So we have really some pretty even distribution here. Sometimes you get a real standout individual who seems to be doing nothing else but watching YouTube videos all day. And what we can do is just tap on any one of these clients, and it's going to take you in and show you some information about this specific client. Now, once again, you'll notice the Google Maps integration we have here, so we can see the approximate location of this client device. That's because once we put our APs in, we can actually plot those onto a floor plan if we wish to, and we can then triangulate the location of an individual client within that space. So that's pretty handy, and this is dynamic, by the way, so it's possible that blue dot will move whilst I'm talking. So we can see that this client is associated right now, and we can see which network SSID they are connected to, and which access point as well. And notice that there are lots of hyperlinks on this page. So it's very easy for me to jump directly to the AP that this user is connected to if I wanted to get more detail about maybe other users who are connected to that, what kind of interference they're experiencing on that AP, and so on. So this client is a dual band one. They're running currently on a 5 gig channel, or they were. That looks like they've just gone offline. So it just shows this is a very much a live dynamic interface. They've probably reassociated to a different AP there. So live information, you can see the signal strength that they have. It's a very healthy connection at this point, and so obviously very handy. You can do directly from here things like a packet capture if you needed to. Perhaps there was a problem with this individual client device having network issues of some kind. You can really get down to the bits and bytes level with that packet capture tool. Now here we can see the traffic profile for this individual user. Let's just change that to last week so we get a little bit more data to play with. So this looks like it's just been in use during this week. And we can then see an individual pie chart which is just for this particular user. So once again we can see details if we wish to of what's going on with this individual client. Now something that's worth pointing out here, it's bound to be a question in your mind, is what is all this grayed out stuff here? The answer to that is I mentioned earlier on that as traffic passes through the Meraki infrastructure, it's actually being classified into recognizable types of traffic. So we've got a lot of Google interoperability here, a lot of Google communication going on. And so we recognize Google, we would recognize something like Facebook, and obviously MySpace we recognized as well there. Those would all show up in the list because they're nice general descriptors. Occasionally we'll be getting websites which we don't recognize, they're not easily classifiable in this way. So what we do is we display them, but only to the owner of the network. So I'm not logged in as the owner of this network today, I'm just logged in as an admin to have a look around, so I can't see that level of detail. But it is available if you want it. And this is something we call traffic hostname visibility, and you can leave this on or turn it off if you wish to. It's entirely up to you how you want to use that. Now the question often on people's minds is, okay, I've identified this type of traffic I'm not happy with, or this individual user I'm not happy with. What am I going to do about it? How am I going to start making sure my network's going to operate appropriately? So the answer to that is to use a policy-based approach. If you had a particular troublemaker you wanted to deal with straight away, we do have this very draconian tool here which will actually block the user. Don't worry, I'm not going to click save, gentlemen. But we can, if we want to, block this user from the network straight away. They'll then get a pop-up on their screen with a message saying CIT, and they won't be going any further on the network until they've had that block removed. But the alternative approach, and probably more realistic, is to actually set up group policies. And these can be tied to an Active Directory user or an Active Directory group, which could be staff and students, for example. And then you can set up different types of rules. So that's the client kind of view here. Let me just take you in now, and we'll have a look at the configuration on the wireless side of things. And I've just noticed time, as always happens to me, it's racing away very quickly. So this is probably going to be the last thing I'll show you today in this demonstration. We just have a quick look at the configuration here. So we've got a guest network configuration, and then we also have one for the district, which will be the official network, if you like. So this will be the one that you actually register your users on via Active Directory, and you can see that we can support up to 15 SSIDs. Generally a good idea to configure fewer than this if you can. So we've got a good number of SSIDs here, but if you do need to support a larger number, then we can absolutely do that. So you can see there configuration for the Radius server. If you are operating a relatively small network, you can use Meraki's own username and password database for authenticating users onto your network, but in many cases, people like to use their own. They maybe already got Active Directory in their environment, so that's a sensible approach to take. Now, in this particular case, the SSID that we're looking at is just simply bridging traffic onto a specific VLAN. So it's part of a larger network deployment. So, for example, DHCP services, which the access points themselves can actually serve to clients, is being served by something else in this case. I'm going to guess that's perhaps the Windows server, gentlemen. Would that be right?
Yes, it's actually run from our Cisco routers. Yeah.
Ah, okay, great. So that's the thing. You can interoperate very nicely with other solutions from other providers, of course. And as far as the wireless configuration is concerned, we do have probably, I would say, the optimal setting here, which is dual band with band steering. That means that any clients that are capable of operating in the 5 gigahertz band, which is far less congested than the 2.4 gig band, they will be encouraged to connect with that one. That one we try to connect them to first. And also, this is also a good setting to go for disabling those old bit rates for the very old 11B wireless standard. It's a good idea to do that because it is going to have a negative impact on the throughput of your faster clients. So, unfortunately, I can't make the clock slow down for me, so I'm going to go back and just wrap up the slides now, and we'll have a look at a couple of questions that have come in. So first of all, product families. We've talked about wireless during today's presentation and the switches that we use to interconnect everything. We can also deploy a range of security appliances which will enable you to really protect your network environment very well. Some people call these firewalls, but that's really a little bit short selling because the firewall is just one of the security features built into this hardware. So we support things like safe search, content filtering, Kaspersky antivirus and anti-phishing. We have source fire intrusion detection and prevention. And we have very sophisticated VPN technology for connecting sites together. So this is a really nice, easy, turnkey solution for protecting the network environment. And then, of course, the Systems Manager MDM, which is very popular in the K-12 environment. I think actually we are the market leader at this point in time. So if you haven't checked that out already, it's definitely worth having a look. There's a lot you can do with that. Now, I don't have time to go through all of the detail on this slide, but you can see for yourself that we have a broad range of eligibility for the E-rate funding program, which is in place at the moment. And I understand that there is a date coming up for that fairly soon. So you want to be thinking about getting that E-rate application in as quickly as you can. So we have an exclusive K-12 offer providing a significant discount on 5-year Cisco Meraki licenses as well as the hardware. So this is really a very good time to get those applications in place. And do take a note of the I can't remember the exact date for when you have to have those submissions in. It's coming up, I think, in the next month or so. So if you are interested in following that up, then do make a move on that fairly quickly. All right, so next steps. Evaluations really are a great way to get familiar with Meraki approach. We've really only had time to scratch the surface during the presentation today. We really want to get this equipment into your hands, which is why we have a complete risk-free evaluation. We'll send you brand new hardware. We'll support you through the trial. If you choose not to keep it, we will pay for it to be shipped back to Meraki. So it really is a no-cost, no hassle option for yourselves. Meraki operates an environment where we iterate new features fairly regularly, and so it's a great idea to subscribe to our blog if you are interested in what we're doing, because that's where we announce everything first. So a really nice way of keeping in touch with Meraki that way. And then, of course, don't forget to reach out. We'll try and get you that free AP as quickly as we can so that you can play with this yourselves. All right, so it looks like we've only got about a minute and a half or so. So I'm just going to very quickly check through a couple of questions that have come in. We have a question here about how we go about blocking Facebook. So we do have the ability with a layer 7 firewall to go and block Facebook. You don't have to worry about knowing which IP addresses and ports to block like you have to with old school firewalls. This is a really easy approach. Perhaps the guys at Norwalk, perhaps you could describe your firewall deployment.
Right. So I'm trying to think of, we currently don't block Facebook because they use it for certain things, but I'm trying to think of something we have blocked through there. But it's fairly simple. You go through the firewall and traffic shaping page. You find the actual layer 7 application you want to block. And yeah, add layer 7 rule, and you drop down, find what you want to block. It's kind of a little more broad than just Facebook, but there it is. And that's it. It's really simple.
Yeah, and one of the things...
I picked a network that didn't have anything there, I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's always a lucky dip, I find, when I'm doing these presentations. Sometimes you get on a really interesting page. This is, I mean, hopefully it's intuitive to people who are following. It's really quick and easy to set these things up. The beauty of this is we've taken all of the hard work out of it, and it will work for even applications that use dynamic ports. So things like Spotify, music streaming services, Skype, they're actually traditionally very difficult to block with firewalls, but we can actually do that. And we can do it both for secure and non-secure pages as well. So there's no real way to circumvent these kind of firewall blocks. Traffic shaping is another approach which enables you to keep your network running nice and smoothly without having to block it at the same time. And I think we did touch on traffic shaping earlier on as a way to keep the network running really smoothly. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to wrap things up now in respect of everybody's time. We never seem to have quite enough, but we do have lots of webinars of various different topics. So if there are aspects of the Meraki portfolio that you'd like to look at in more detail, then do please sign up for one of those, and we can take you through a specific product, show you a little bit more of what it's like to live with these on a day-to-day basis. So I hope you found it a useful presentation today, and I really would like to take this opportunity to thank our visitors today or have joined us on the presentation. Gentlemen, if you've got any closing comments, then we'll get things wrapped up.
No, just thank you. Definitely, we've been like I said, we couldn't be happier with the solution that we have here in Norwalk, and we just know that it's going to be something that's going to really help our students over the long haul now.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today. I think it's been a really nice, clear presentation. Lots of very useful stuff for people to digest there. So it just remains from Tanya and myself here in the room in San Francisco to say thank you very much indeed for joining us today. As you exit the webinar, we will ask you a couple of survey questions, and I'd be very grateful if you could spend a moment to answer those for us. They do help us to ensure that these webinars are valuable for people who attend in the future. So just remains for us to say thanks again for joining and spending the hour with us. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.